If you love Name Explain, then please consider leaving a super thanks in the comments of this video. It's a great way to make a one-time donation to the channel and help support Name Explain. When a piece of media becomes popular around the world, whether it be a film, television series, or book, it's pretty likely that it will get translated. Translations allow people who don't speak the media's native language to enjoy and experience it too. Translating something from one language into another is a pretty huge task, especially when it comes to a piece of creative writing, where every word has been mulled over and carefully chosen. Translating media is something many people have made successful careers out of. There's people out there whose job it is to turn a German film into English or a Russian novel into Italian. Yet there's one medium that has a history of translation that is quite possibly way more fascinating than any of those. That being the translation of manga. Manga is the term for comic books and graphic novels that originate from Japan. The name is derived from the two kanji characters of man, which means something along the lines of whimsical, and ga, which simply means pictures. So the name can be translated as meaning whimsical pictures, which is fitting as a lot of mangas depict whimsical or fantastical situations and stories. Though over the years, mangas have evolved from simple stories for kids to stories that cover a whole range of topics and subject matters, from silly stories to epic tales dealing with all kinds of adult subject matters. Manga is one of Japan's most important cultural exports, and many of Japan's most well-known franchises started life as mangas, like Dragon Ball, Attack on Titan, Naruto, and One Piece. And before we continue, it's worth highlighting that a lot of what I'm talking about applies to the translation of Korean and Chinese comic books too, known as manhwa and manhwa respectively. But today we're focusing on just Japanese manga. Also, despite being something of a weeb myself, I haven't actually read all that much manga, so a lot of the information I found out for this video was brand new to me, and this video is very much from the perspective of an outsider looking in, which might be yourself too. This definitely isn't my usual kind of video, but it's really fun, so bear with me. In Japan, manga dates quite far back. In fact, if we're defining manga as Japanese stories conveyed through pictures, the earliest example of manga is seen as the 12th and 13th century picture scrolls called the Shoujo Jinbutsu Giga, which depict various animals and people getting up to all sorts of adventures. However, something more like Astro Boy is seen as one of the most influential mangas, which set the tropes and ideas for the medium going forwards. Manga has always had a fan base in the English-speaking world, but it was more towards the 80s, 90s, and 2000s when it exploded into popularity thanks to the rise in internet usage, making it way more accessible. Official translations on mangas helped fuel this boom, but what was perhaps more pivotal were the fans who were translating these stories and distributing them online too. The work that goes behind translating these comics, whether that be officially or by fans, and what goes on behind the scenes to make this possible is fascinating and insane in the best way possible. Both official and fan translations are two very different things, with their own histories, but there's of course common ground between the two, like the actual translating of the words themselves. Translating any language into another language is a hard thing, no matter how easy Google Translate makes it seem at times. Yet translating Japanese into English, as we will be focusing on in this video, is a whole different beast. Japanese and English are two very different languages, from the characters used to the sentence structure and grammar, to even the direction it is written in. Japanese is even considered by many to be the hardest language to learn for a native English speaker. Yet, even if you are a native English speaker who is fluent in Japanese, that still isn't enough at times. You have to actually be a pretty good and creative writer too. Translating manga is about more than just literally translating the text from Japanese to English. Various aspects have to be changed, like grammar and sentence structure as already mentioned, but also certain phrases that might not exist in English need to be adapted, and certain jokes and puns might not make too much sense to an English reader. Conversely, some gags which are seen as fine in Japanese might not be as appropriate in the English-speaking world either. This is when the translator's skills as an actual writer have to come into play. They often need to find ways to make the text make sense to an English speaker, but still maintain the spirit and feel of the initial Japanese text too. This can in some cases mean taking a lot of creative liberties with the writing to get the job done. done. In an interview with Forbes, professional manga translator Jenny McKeon spoke about her job, saying that when you read a manga that she's translated, most of the time you're reading her words, as opposed to the literal translation of the words from the original author. Also saying, I get the sense that a lot of people think translators just write a literal translation of the words in the original, and then someone else turns it into a final script, which is not the case. We do have editors, and they do a lot of fine-tuning, but being a translator is almost as much about being a writer as it is about knowing the language that you translate. She also gives a great example of how she used her own creative writing prowess to adapt a pun that made no sense in English. The pun revolved around someone finishing their geography homework, and how the word for done and geography are similar in Japanese, but that doesn't work in English. So instead, she changed it to, my science homework and I have zero chemistry, which still captures the spirit of the original line, but is fairly different. This shows us that to be a successful translator, not only do you have to know the two languages, but be a competent writer and even be able to channel the thought process of the original writer too, understanding their style and even their sense of humor at times. And the final thing I ought to highlight in regards to the actual translating process is names. This is Name Explain after all. Many characters in mangas have distinctly Japanese names. Sometimes these are carried over into English translations, but sometimes they're changed to make them more manageable for English speakers. For example, Goku from Dragon Ball was once referred to as Zero in an English dub of the anime. Even the title of mangas themselves can be changed too. Attack on Titan's original Japanese name is Shingeki no Kyojin, which translates into The Advancing Giant. It's easy to see why this was changed wholesale for English. Translating manga has become big business, with companies like Viz and Crunchyroll being big players in that world. And getting a job in this field can be hard work. The aforementioned Jenny McKeon explains that she got her job by winning a yearly competition called the Manga Translation Battle, which pits budding translators against one another to see who can do the best job in translating a story from Japanese to English. There's very few jobs I know of that involve winning a competition to get the role. Supposedly, the first fully independent manga series that got translated into English was one named Barefoot Gen, which got translated in 1979. This is quite a long time ago to say the least, but fans have been translating manga into English before then. This is where we enter the world of fan translations, more commonly referred to as scanlations, a portmanteau of scan and translation, as they often require scanning pages to translate them. The earliest known of scanlation dates back to 1977, 2 years before that first official translation. This was done by a 4-person group named Deraka, which translated the manga Phoenix into English. While this is far back in time, it wouldn't be until the 90s and 2000s that scanlations really picked up. Thanks to more widespread internet usage, people interested in this niche subject could talk to each other more and organize themselves into groups who could share the workload more easily. The first modern scanlation group, Manga Scans, started their operation in April 2000. The history of scanlations is long and wild, and we can't go into it all here, but the incredible website InsideScanlation.com have a huge write-up on the past time's history, which has been vital in making this video. But I do have to highlight just how important scanlation has been in popularizing manga in the English-speaking world. Many scanlators hunt for mangas that aren't even popular yet, so once it gains traction, there's a good amount of it ready to go. Some even believe that official translators look at what is popular in the scanlation circles when they decide what to officially translate. Though perhaps the most incredible thing about scanlations is that most of the time, it's done for completely free. Most scanlators are volunteers and commit so much of their time and energy to the process out of love for the medium and to make these stories accessible to as many people as possible. I adore stories of people doing things for free on the internet purely out of goodwill, nerds being nerds for the greater good. And speaking of the scanlation process, it is exactly that, a huge process to get these stories from Japanese to English, made harder because fans tend to not have access to the official documents and pages from the original publishers. Scanlation is rarely done by a single person. As mentioned, they tend to work in groups, with different people taking on different roles. From my research, the process tends to look like this. First, you have the raw provider / scanner. These are the people who get their hands on the manga / raw material in the first place. They then have to scan in each page of the manga onto a computer. This can involve having to buy the book, as well as ripping out pages to get the scans as clean as possible. Then the cleaner does their work. Their job is to remove all the unwanted original Japanese text from the images. This can even mean cropping certain parts and even redrawing parts of the image entirely. Only after this, the translator does their job. They have the role of translating the words from Japanese to English, which, as mentioned, is often about more than just literally translating the words. They tend to write this, however, as a traditional script. It's the typesetter's job to then place those words into the empty speech bubbles provided by the cleaner and make sure it all looks neat on the page. After this is done, it gets passed on to an editor who checks over everything and makes sure there's no errors like typos, grammatical mistakes, or just anything weird in general. Then a proofreader to once again check everything is good and fun, and then finally a quality checker to make sure the words and images are all okay. Once this is done, the process is complete and the manga can be read by many people online. And like I said, all that work is done for free most of the time. It's just insane the love people have for this work. Though another reason why much of this work is done for free is because of the legal grey area that scanlations fall into. It can be seen as piracy to some, as it's taking copyrighted work and sharing it for free. However, some publishers are cool with it, especially if it's a manga they have no interest in officially translating themselves. The aforementioned 1977 fan translation of Phoenix went on to be incorporated into the official translation some years later. However you look at it, scanlations are not a legally governed thing with any official organization. This could really make it a wild west of people doing whatever they want. Yet, amazingly despite this, there is something of a code of ethics in the world of scanlation that scanlators respect and abide by. These ethics include things like not scanlating series that have official translations or going to have them, only using cleaner pages if they have permission from the original cleaner, and conversely not using a translator's script without their permission. Though it seems one of the biggest ethic matters in the world of scanlating is sniping. Sniping is when another scanlation group starts scanlating a manga that another group have already started scanlating. This is seen as a big no-no. Thankfully, most scanlators abide by this code of conduct, but when they don't, drama ensues. Yeah, scanlation drama is seemingly a huge thing. Inside scanlation.com have a whole page on it, and there's even a dedicated subreddit for it with over 50,000 followers called r/scanlation drama. One of the most infamous cases of scanlation drama happened when a site called Naruto Fan, owned by someone with the username Tamzo, started charging people for Naruto scanlations. This angered many in the community and resulted in the formation of StopTamzo.com, which offered these downloads for free instead. Many scanlation groups joined in on this drama, and it resulted in a huge amount of Naruto scanlations coming into existence to stop this menace. That's a seriously abridged version of this story, but it shows us that whenever there's an internet community, drama is never too far behind. The final question in all this is, what's better, an official translation or a scanlation? Well, there isn't one definitive answer. Some people enjoy the official translations, as they're easier to get hold of, especially physical copies, while others prefer scanlations, seeing them as a work of love made by fans who pay close attention to small details, as opposed to some official translations, which are sometimes seen as being more lazily done. Yet, whatever the case, next time you read an English translation of a manga, whether it be an official translation or a scanlation, just remember that a huge amount of love, time, energy, commitment, sometimes unpaid work, and occasionally a dash of drama has gone into the story you are reading. As an outsider looking in, I can safely say that the world of manga translation seems utterly insane, and I absolutely love it. And yeah, this is barely a name explain video, but it's kind of about language and I just adore weird internet niches like this one. This video topic was suggested by Grey Computer over on my Patreon. Every Wednesday, I put up a video request post over on my Patreon for my awesome patrons to leave video ideas on. I then pick one of those ideas to be turned into a video the following Wednesday. So if you have a great idea for a Name Explain video and wish to enjoy Name Explain videos ad-free, as well as get exclusive content and your name at the end of these videos, then why not support the channel on Patreon? It takes just $1 a month to help the channel in a huge way and gets you all of these amazing benefits. Visit patreon.com/nameexplain or click the link down below. Name Explain depends on viewers like yourself supporting the channel financially on Patreon, so a huge thank you to everyone who does. Donating just $1 a month helps the channel amazingly and gets you bonuses including ad-free videos, exclusive content, the power to request ideas to be made into actual Name Explain videos, and your name at the end of the video with all these awesome people. Visit patreon.com/Name Explain or click the link down below to find out how you too can support the channel. Thank you. Thanks for reaching the end of the video. Why not watch another and subscribe to keep up to date on all things Name Explain. You can find myself on Instagram where I'm NameExplainYT and join the Facebook group Friends of Name Explain to talk with myself and other name nerds. All that will be linked down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and once again, thank you all so much.